welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going. All right, folks, it is time to jump into the good stuff, because today we are talking about discovering critical capabilities in leading SSE, SIEM, and SOAR tools. So basically, today is Fun with Acronyms Day. OMG, right? Okay, I promise that's the last one I'll do. But if you have favorite acronyms, feel free to post them in the chat. I always want a new acronym. And today's topic is so important because we get to explore the three major categories of tools that are at the forefront of defense: SSE, Security Service Edge; SIEM, Security Information and Event Management; and SOAR, Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Super, hey? There is a lot to consider in each one of these categories, so luckily today we will be joined by some top experts from Palo Alto Networks and Rapid7 who will help guide us through the conversation. I am so excited to be here with all of you to be a part of this day. I mentioned this earlier, but if we haven't met before, my name's Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and we've got actually a whole crew of moderators here with us today. Let me show you our moderator crew. Look at that. The whole mod squad here with you today. They're going to be hanging out with us on live chat. That's David Davis, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward. That's an all-star crew right there. And we have one more thing that we want you to know about our day today, and that is prizes. So today on the EcoCast, you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards that we will be giving away to three lucky winners who are here live and present with us at the EcoCast. Now, I mentioned this in the housekeeping this morning, but you can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab. So if you have any questions about that, head on over to the handouts tab. All right, well, that was it for getting things rolling. Now we're going to jump into the fun stuff, and I am so excited to introduce you to our keynote speaker. Now, many of you have heard us chat with him before, so you already know that we are in for a great start here today. To kick things off, we will explore some trends and cool ideas around SSE, SIEM, and SOAR with Evgeny Karam, co-founder of the Security Architecture Podcast, and just an all-around fascinating human. So let's dive in with Evgeny. Thank you so much for being back here with us this morning. The platform is all yours. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today and talk about these important tools, SSE, SIEM, and SOAR. As an architect, I believe in integration. I believe in connected architecture and infrastructure. So very happy today to talk about this concept and ideas and how they work. You probably understand, I believe, in defense in depth. It's not a new term, but it's a very important term as well. And you saw me present in the past, I use this quite a lot because I believe in structural approach with multiple tools to defend and protect our castle, protect our environment. Some trends that are happening right now in the industry. We kind of all work from home, hybrid, somewhere. Basically, we're talking about the idea that the perimeter is everywhere, that it's a hybrid approach. I should be able to work from anywhere I want or I need. Maybe I need to travel, maybe I need to go to work, maybe I need to stay home. Really, really, really depends. Another trend that is important, and I believe in this trend very, very much, is results, but not just results, time to resolution. We want to be able to respond to alerts, to problems very, very quickly. We understand that protection is very important and mandatory, but we also understand from time to time stuff happening, and we want to be able to respond as quick as possible. And the last one I want to talk to you about is automation. No, not ChatGPT, not AI, just automation. In many of the tools, there is the use of AI, but in this particular case, I just want to talk about automation and the importance of it and how it could make our life easier and also much faster. So let's begin with one of the tools, SSE. This term came up, Gartner invented the term in 2019. Actually, in 2019, they came out with the term Secure Access Service Edge that later on transitioned to be an SSE. And the reason I bring in this slide here, because you may be confused what's the difference. And the difference here in the SASE, we have the network and SD-WAN. In SSE, we only have the security control. So secure, we have gateway, firewall as a service, CASB, and ZTNA. And actually, very, very interestingly enough, Gartner just released their second quadrant for SSE, I believe, last week. It's bringing quite an important part because there was no magic quadrant for ZTNA, there was a magic quadrant for CASB and Secure Web Gateway. They put everything under one umbrella and put the network part, the SD-WAN, on the side. Why it's important? Because the SSE part, the vendors, the technology, the framework, give us the options to work from anywhere, go anywhere we want, with the ability to connect back to our office securely, with the ability to connect to our applications and the websites we need to do our job or just we need to browse, and also give us the options to connect our APIs as with CASB to SaaS applications to understand from malware, to understand if there's DLP violation and many, many other things. Me personally, I spend a lot of time in SASE and SSE space, and it's a topic that we can cover for a very long time, and people after me will go much deeper on different things with this. This is some of the features that are incorporated in SSE, but not all of them. You may see here endpoint. We may see here threat intelligence. You may see here DNS, for example, on other controls that not always incorporated in the SSE part and are standalone. There are some vendors that do all of them, but there are still quite a lot of different applications and vendors that do different things, and I'll explain why it's important in a second. The reason why it's important, because we want to aggregate alerts and events from all this vendor. This could be from the firewall, from SSE, it could be from email security, DLP, endpoint security, threat intelligence, and put them under SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. SIEM is a very, very complicated and smart device that will massage all the information, understand what related to what, and will be able to help the analyst to go much, much quicker with understanding of the event. So the idea here is to do correlation between different logs, understand if the intruder came in through the firewall or through the endpoint security or through some other means, and then later on create a better response and also understand what to prevent in the future. When I say came in through the firewall, it doesn't mean that the firewall is broken or breached. It means that we saw the event in the firewall as well, or in the SSE, or endpoint, or DLP, email. There's a lot of different devices that we have in our infrastructure. Here's an interesting part. When we get this information, we can create different playbooks to respond to them. And mature SOCs, this is what they do. They have playbooks for different events, for malware, for phishing, for DDoS, for intrusion prevention. And using the playbook, they're going to go and get the information from the devices to understand what's happening and then respond. In many of the cases, we're doing this manually. This may take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes in some cases, because there could be a lot of information to gather. It could be information from the switch, from Active Directory, from the firewall, from the endpoint security. Again, like the list could be quite big. This is where SOAR comes in. It's a relatively new, by relatively new, I mean probably around 5 to 8 years technology that help us to take our playbooks and automate them. And as an architect, I believe it's very important here is not just implement automation, is to implement automation on top of what you already have. It means you have a playbook, you're already mature in what you do, and then you take the SOAR to bring it to the level up. As an example, what I can do, it can automatically go to my Active Directory, to my switches, to my DDI, or DNS and DHCP information, and gather all the information about IPs, users, where they're located. We call it information enrichment. So instead of me going and doing it manually, I can do it with a click of a button or implement the use cases as part of my SIEM, and with certain alerts, it will get me all the information right away. Next step, if I need to remediate, I can click another button and remediate it. What can I do? I can isolate an endpoint from the network using a switch. I can potentially go and reset the password for the people. I can potentially go and remove a spam email. Again, there's a lot of implications here, and this is what we can do with automation and bring it back to time to resolution. Now, you may think it's very complex, and people right after me will go in much deeper information state to explain how it's work, how you can use it, and what's the implications and use cases for you. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in the next sessions.
Well, thank you, Evgeny. Such an awesome chat as always. Lots of great takeaways and just a perfect way to kick off our day and kind of get started with our presentations here today. Now, before we do bring out our very first expert speaker here, we have a question for all of you. So it's your turn to give some information. What we want to know is, what's your timeline? You know, today we're talking about SSE, SIEM, SOAR. If you're thinking about that in your organization, whether it's implementation or enhancing or revising or replacing legacy, what is the timeline that you have in mind? There's no wrong answer here. This is just giving our speakers an idea of whether or not you're looking with some urgency or a little bit farther on down the line. So go ahead and fill out the poll there. And to give you an idea, I'm seeing about 40% in the not sure, and then everything else kind of an even split between the 6 and 12 and 12 and 24. So that tells me, oh, it actually just took a big jump towards the 6 to 12 months. That tells me that a lot of you are still in that kind of research phase. You're not totally sure what you need, what you want, and what the timeline for that is going to be. And then the other vast majority are ready to go right now. So that's really good. That's a good split. All right. Well, on that note, let's get going right now. We're going to jump into our very first presentation of the day. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to this expert speaker. We're definitely starting out on a high note because we have here with us now Greg Smith, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Palo Alto Networks. Greg, thank you so much for being here with us today to get us started on this EcoCast. I know we have some great stuff planned for the audience today and definitely want to leave some time for questions at the end. So Greg, I will hand things right on over to you. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Greg Smith, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why automation and AI are crucial to modernizing your security operations center. And so what I'd really like to highlight today is, first, every time there is a breach, security is able to figure out rather quickly what happened, what systems got touched, what data was taken. So the question ultimately becomes, if you're able to figure out so quickly after the fact what happened, why can't you do something beforehand? Stop the damage. Keep the attack from progressing. Why is that so hard? And the answer is, it's because you have information in so many places. It's so hard to get your handle of it. The network data goes into the NTA, the endpoint data goes into the EDR, some logs go into the SIEM, and some alerts go to other systems that don't even come back. You can't even correlate. Ultimately, the SOC becomes even more of a disconnected entity. And if you're a SOC analyst, you're getting thousands of alerts a day. You don't have the context to go with it. You have to get back to the source systems. And all of this relies on the human analyst to make sense of everything. And in fact, if we think about it, the rest of the security architecture has been modernized. The network is moving beyond the perimeter and moving towards zero trust and SASE. Infrastructure has moved from data center to the cloud. An endpoint has been moving away from AV to EDR, XDR for a while now. And yet in the SOC, we're still running on the same SIEMs that in many cases were designed about 20 years ago. Splunk itself was created in 2007, before the iPhone or Facebook was even invented. These are not modern products. And the point is, it's time for a rethink. Cortex Extended Security, Intelligence, and Automation Management is our rethink in the platform that runs the SOC. It is our autonomous security platform that powers the modern SOC. XIM is a new approach that is automation first, not human first, like most SOCs are, most SIEMs are in the SOC today. And as a result, We will enable a modern SOC where XIM acts like autopilot in modern airlines. It handles the things you don't want humans to do or need them to do so that they can focus on the incredibly difficult tasks at hand. So all these monumental changes are only solvable if we take a new and innovative approach. And this is exactly what we're trying to do. If you think about how the SIEM and in general most tools in the SOC have been designed for the analyst to be the main intake. What this means is the focus is on human readable alerts. But that's a tiny amount of the data that comes in. When the analyst is the front end of this process, this is all they can take in at all. So the detection, investigation, analytics, automation, it's all built on a small amount of alerts coming in that then have to be pre-processed, pre-filtered, and pre-prioritized. This is not sufficient. We have to flip this on its head. So we have to fundamentally change the three building blocks in the SOC: good data, analytics of the integrated data, and native automation. And we have to think of machines, automations, AI as being the front end of this process and feeding it the massive amounts of data. Then, based on that, running our detection engine, our investigations, our response capabilities on top of those analytics and automation, positioning the analysts there to just supervise. They are there to make the hard decisions, to look at the data that doesn't make sense. So in that model, a completely different foundation is required for the platform approach. And this is what XIM here is designed to do. There are three key concepts of how we do this. First is around the data that's spread around in multiple systems. We want to pull it together, stitch it together with automation so that we can have a coherent large basis of machine and human readable data that we can then do analytics against. So we can do baselining to find unusual behaviors and anomalies. Once we have that, we can rely more on automation instead of humans. There are two parts of this automation. When we think of automation, we often think of human workflow, like SOAR. But there is also what we call native automation in the product. The automation to ingest the data and normalize it. The mapping into bigger data models and then putting analytics against that, triage and taking response there. And that is the native automation built into XIM. In addition, of course, we have the workflow automation that we see. The third key concept comes from the fact that today we hear SOCs say that they're very reactive. A lot of information's coming at us, alerts, really trying to make sense of all this as soon as possible has them feeling like they're on the back of their foot. Our thought here is that if you let the machine handle the stitching and analytics of the data in an automated fashion, then the human analyst can start being more proactive and get out ahead of things, find vulnerabilities they didn't know about, and shut those down before they become alerts and ultimately come back to where they have to react to. So we deliver this proactive capability, allowing customers to constantly analyze the attack surface and shrink it. And we do that with an embedded attack surface management product we have here called Expanse at Cortex. And the result are these two coming together to transform the way we do detection and response, and transform the analyst experience and continually reduce risk for customers in ways that SIEMs just can't do today. All right, so how does all this work? Fundamentally, this is a platform that enables much better detection and response that's built on a data foundation I've talked about. Taking data that was previously in a variety of systems, bringing it together, taking data from our endpoint, network, identity systems, from the systems and applications around identity, taking third-party and first-party intel, and stitching all that together, giving you a platform for automatically detecting threats and responding to them faster. Now, these typically today are multiple products bought from multiple vendors, resulting in multiple screens and workflows. And if you're an analyst, you have to figure all this out and go across all these different systems. If you're in security engineering or architecture, you have to figure out how to integrate all these things. And it's all just a mess. So the transformation here is to unify all this into a single platform. And now this isn't theoretical. We've seen how this proactive automation and intelligent data foundation works in our own SOC at Palo Alto Networks. Our SOC handles 1.1 trillion event logs and records and so forth a month, almost 40 billion a day. The vast majority of these events get boiled down to less than 200 alerts, with the majority of those then handled automatically by the system. Then that is reduced down to a handful, single-digit, manual incidents that an analyst has to look at. This allows us to detect on average new threats in 10 seconds and to respond to the threat in a minute. And the most important thing here is it doesn't require heroics. Sometimes when I talk to customers, I'll hear them saying, well, no way our company can achieve what you have. But Palo Alto Networks is a mid-sized company. We don't have some kind of special magic. And yes, we do have awesome analysts, but they're able to use the benefit of automation to get these amazing results with no extra heroics necessary. And this is what we think our customers really want in their SOC. Next, many of the customers we talk to speak that the SOC is actually quite disconnected from the cloud. Over time, more and more of our customers' infrastructure has migrated to the cloud, which brings along a whole new set of data models and components like containers. When we talk to our customers, approximately half of them say, look, we haven't connected cloud operations into the SOC. Most of them don't have cloud data in their SIEM either. So of course, if you're in the SOC, you're responsible for detecting threats and responding to them across everything you do. More than just cloud. You can't just have that becoming a growing blind spot for security operations. Now, the good news is SIEM was designed from day one to take data from enterprise and cloud, stitch it together to make sense of it all, delivering the same kind of analytics as we've discussed for detection and response for on-prem use cases as well as cloud. Now, some of our customers will say, look, we're not ready yet. They don't want to worry about replacing the enterprise SIEM. That's fine. For enterprise customers, SIEM will work great. Other customers say they're okay with what they've got on-prem and they want to start with just the cloud. They need help to make sense of that data and connect it back to the SOC. Cloud-first customer, SIEM also works great. Then there are customers who don't want to choose between either or, and of course, this works great for them as well. This platform gives them the visibility, detection, response, reporting, and automation across the entire landscape. Plus, as they move and shift their architectures around, SIEM will support their strategic goals. So speaking of strategic goals, let's talk about one threat area that has been an issue for the SOC that could use a comprehensive approach and be aided by automation. So there's this common assumption in security that threats come from the outside. And now most of us security professionals know that's not true. But as outer defenses became more difficult to breach, malicious actors began targeting the humans on the inside, giving rise to two significant threat vectors, identity threats and malicious insiders. Now, traditional security approaches were not sufficient to protect against these threats, as they often occur from within an organization's network and required advanced learning algorithms to accurately identify and respond to them. So, the response by many SOCs was to deploy multiple tools, like ITDR tools that can help protect identity systems, detect what they are compromised, or whether they are compromised and enable efficient remediation, identity protection to provide visibility on identity-based attacks, try to spot the anomalies, as well as insider risk management to measure, detect, and contain undesirable behavior of trusted accounts. However, none of that stopped the problem. As I discussed earlier, this created more disconnected tooling and was still limited to human-readable data. Further, identity threats and malicious insider attacks are often carried out over an extended period of time, making them harder to detect using traditional detection engines. So our response, and built from the ground up, was the Cortex Identity Threat Detection and Response module, providing proactive protection against identity-related threats. By leveraging the power of AI and automation, the module provides advanced detection capabilities that enable organizations to quickly identify, investigate, and ultimately respond to identity threats. The new model offers additional new layers of protection for the use cases like suspected insider activity, suspicious configuration and manipulation, modification of permissions, exfiltration to physical devices, and a number of other threat actor TTPs. To cover expanding digital footprints, the new module monitors numerous and widely used data sources, including the major cloud providers and SaaS applications. Some of the things I'm most excited about here are the new automations for user and host role classifications based on continuous analysis of activities. Assets can be associated with specific roles to provide more context for analytics. The new Identity Threat Detection and Response module provides protection for identity threats earlier in the kill chain. And that's what we're talking about, right? Give you the power to do things much sooner before they become much bigger problems. By combining this with the advanced detection capabilities of identity analytics, Cortex delivers superior protection against identity-related threats across the attack lifecycle, reducing the risk of data breaches and other security incidents. All right, so you've heard this guy talk about a bunch of stuff, marketing guy over here telling you all these things. What does a happy customer actually look like and sound like? So here's an example. Imagination Technologies is a market leader in safe human-machine interface, compute, and graphics, thanks to its GPU, AI, and connectivity solutions for automotive applications. However, point solution products obscured visibility for ImagineTech's security team, who was stretched thin dealing with manual reactive interventions. These analyst-driven interventions led to longer investigation times and reduced efficiency of protecting the company. So their key requirements while searching for a solution to this problem were to protect IP and people using The key requirements were protect IP and people using intelligent, machine-led, powered endpoint protection, automate repetitive data analysis tasks to improve productivity, allowing more time for value-added security operations, and unite endpoint, network, cloud, and identity data to detect advanced threats with precision to simplify investigations. And this absolutely worked. According to Paul Alexander, the director of IT Op at Imagination Tech, the company's existing SIEM was a main cause of the problem. In his words, we were collecting vast amounts of data from the network, endpoints, and cloud, but the SIEM was not designed to examine the data on this scale or variety. We were only looking at a single data type or certain type of log. We were never connecting the data or delivering real intelligence from it. He also says this is now a frictionless, no-compromise security at its very best. Everything connects seamlessly with Palo Alto Networks. The technologies, the people, and the future roadmap are perfect for what we're trying to solve for. So again, this for many customers sounds amazing, but it also sounds a lot different from what they're doing today. And the great news is if you become a Cortex customer, you can become on the path for this journey quite easily. If you place your data into XDR, XSIAM will know how to do that same kind of data handling, but better. If you see, in the latest MITRE attack reports, XDR scored exceptionally well in endpoint detection and response. Now, if you use XSOAR for automation, XSIAM has the same workflow automation plus amazing native automations around data handling and triage. And if you use our attack surface management product, Expanse, to get proactive on your attack surface, you will be able to take advantage of this detection and response outcomes we've talked about, plus more. And naturally, it's all even better news if you're a Palo Alto Networks customer using one of our great next generation firewalls. That data is, of course, meant to be handled with inside Cortex Security Operations Platform products. But across all of this, we also provide expertise in services to augment or enhance your team with Palo Alto Networks Unit 42. We have most recently launched the Unit 42 MDR for Cortex. So the great thing is, no matter where you start, you can keep moving and get yourself on that path towards this modern security operations center. So in closing, today's hybrid enterprise generates many times the security data of only a few years ago. Yet the typical SOC still operates on data silos and limited cloud visibility, aging SIEM technology, and manual human-driven processes that invite attackers to exploit to their advantage. Incremental analyst headcount cannot stem this tide. The modern SOC must turn to an intelligent machine-driven model that can block attacks from endpoint to cloud at scale, with minimal analyst involvement and SOC engineering overhead. And that's why our goal here and our outcomes that we're seeing across our customers is to improve analyst experience and increase their productivity by eliminating security silos. Because they rely on too many mixed screens from multiple products from different vendors. And in contrast, XSIAM delivers all this functionality in the same console, the same workflows, operating on fully integrated data. Then uncover attacks with behavior analytics and industry-leading threat intelligence. Palo Alto Networks experts collect indicators across customers, process, and update models, and to ensure up-to-date protection for all of our customers. And finally, we need to make it easier for you to onboard new data sources. And that's exactly what we just heard from Imagination Tech. Unlike existing SIEMs, Adding a new data source to XIM is fast and easy. Onboarding only takes a few clicks. The new data is automatically integrated into the XIM data model, into models and correlations, and into playbooks and dashboards. The result is an ever-growing foundation for machine learning and analytics, ultimately leading to the human empowerment that we talked about. So to learn more about what I talked about here today, there's a few resources that Jess will share with you. So first, we have customer video, which you can hear directly from the customer that I just talked about, Imagination Technologies. Then we have a deeper dive into a demonstration directly from our launch event just a few short months ago, so you can see XIM in action and see the automations that we just talked about. And finally, we have a solution brief for more detail on the capabilities that XIM delivers to our customers. So thank you for your time today, and back to you, Jess.
Awesome. Greg, thank you so much for that presentation. I always learn so much from you. I love it. And I know that our audience is really vibing with the content today because we have a lot of great questions coming in already. So I want to jump into those. As Greg mentioned, I'm going to put up some links to those resources in just a moment here. We'll get to those before we get into the poll. But let's do these questions first. Greg, you ready to dive in?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. This is a fun one here. Is that product name an acronym? What does it mean?
Are you saying that it's not super explanatory just looking at the letters? No way.
I mean, it's extremely explanatory, but let's say somebody out there was feeling a little creative. What would you tell them?
Yeah, fair question. So XIM stands for Extended Security Intelligence and Automation Management. So it's quite a mouthful. But the net here is that XIM is an automation-first platform for the modern SOC, harnessing the power of machine intelligence to really improve the outcomes of your security operations center and your people. So that's really the focus there.
Okay, I like it. Short and sweet. That's great. Okay, how does, we can always use more acronyms. The one thing the tech world is really short on, Greg, I think,
yes.
Acronyms. There's a real shortage of those out there. So thank you for adding to that lexicon for us all. Let's go with this one next here. How does XIM deliver on the autonomous security platform vision?
Ooh, a hard hitter. Well, so XIM is our rethink in the platform that runs the SOC. It's our autonomous security platform that powers the modern SOC, right? So it's a new approach that is actually automation first, not human first, like most of the SOCs we are talking about. So if you think back to a couple of slides ago that I had where we say it was all based on human readable data first that would come in, that then the humans would then, pass on to the machines. So an analyst would then have to sort through this information, try to figure out how to plug this into some kind of correlation engine to get an outcome. And what we're saying is that's not working. So instead of saying, like an autonomous SOC all on its own with no people, we're saying, no, make the people better. So XIM is the combination of XDR, XSOAR, and Expanse, the products we have internally, plus SIM capabilities necessary for a SOC to have a modern and robust security posture. So as a result, we enable that modern SOC and that autonomy to really actually come through when we think of it more as like autopilot in modern airlines. Because it's handling a number of the things for you, so you don't have to be hands-on on a million different buttons and switches like they are in a commercial airline. And you can really focus on the hard stuff and the stuff that you do best.
Yeah, I like that. I want my pilots and my security teams to be focusing on what they do best as much as possible, and then everything else can be automated. That's fine. No, I really do like that. And I think that is, a cool direction is so often we think of automation as being black and white, all humans are all machine and this sort of enhanced human excellence. I've heard them referred to as like super jobs or super roles. And, I think that's a really neat way to approach that. I'm going to sneak in another question here. Can you replace my SIM and EDR?
Oh, again, getting right to it. So certainly, XIM unifies best-in-class functions from EDR and SIM. And what I'd like to highlight is that, sure, if you have hyper-specific like data hygiene use cases out of a SIM, XIM is not exactly focused on that. Right, we focus on security outcomes. So if you're really trying to figure out if like your application operation stats and metrics are perfect, this may not be the right solution for you. So we really focus on using security-specific data models and applying machine learning to automate that data integration, analysis, and triage, right? Because it's focused on helping you respond to alerts, enabling the analysts to focus on incidents that require human intervention. So sure, in doing so, this allows customers to consolidate their SIEM and EDR solutions instead of paying and managing two completely separate solution sets. And I know many of you are out there with two very expensive SIEM and EDR solutions, and you would probably welcome the opportunity to consolidate both of those.
So this may actually answer our next question, because we had someone wondering if you could kind of dig in a little bit more to what you feel really makes you unique. And I think that is always an interesting question, and it's always interesting to hear what different people within an organization feel is kind of that standout feature. So maybe Greg, to you, what really makes Palo Alto Networks, what makes, or if you want to zoom in a little bit more, what makes you unique?
Sure. So to me, this company started pretty early on with the idea around the next generation firewall. There were firewall products out there that weren't really living up to the expectation in the market. And so taking that next incremental step to actually really change and innovate in that market segment. And I think it's this very similar example here. And the proof comes in, it's not just theoretical, we're using this here. And as I told you about, we could really go from orders of magnitude from 36 billion logs coming all the way down to handful, single-digit incidents that required intervention. That kind of innovative thinking to how we can make it so that products and automation and people, that trio can be in harmony. To me, that's what's really different. I look around, great, we got RSA coming up soon. We've been hearing these promises for a while, but they all seem very fragmented still. They aren't integrated. It isn't actually coming down to a common data model. So then you spend most of your time trying to parse through it, lots of security engineering time to take advantage of any of this. It doesn't sound like human empowered. So to me, I think that's one of the top ways that we are truly different. And the next one, of course, I'm biased. I think Unit 42, the intel that they have from doing incident response, from managing others' environments, giving that intel back so we can build it into our products, very, very key, right? So this is a live thing happening versus the idea of, we'll patch it maybe on a Tuesday some other time, right? So to me, those are the top ones that I think differentiate us the most.
Those are great. Yeah, always on a Tuesday, or what's the number one day to start, diets or projects or moving? It's tomorrow. So always tomorrow. Well, that's great, Greg. And thank you so much. Before you take off, if somebody out there is really excited, wants to jump in, besides the links that I'm going to share in just a moment, what do you recommend as a first step to getting rolling?
I mean, naturally, the easiest thing is to come to my massive website, and then there's the contact us button, and for sure we'll hit you up, get right back to you. If you're going to be at RSA, come see us at the booth. Again, happy to help you. And other than that, maybe I'll field some messages on my LinkedIn and I can give you a link. I'm sure finding Greg Smith on LinkedIn is actually kind of hard.
Yes. Yeah. Shockingly. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I have to say it is always an absolute pleasure when we get to chat with you, entertaining and informative as per usual. Thank you so much for making some time to come and hang out with us today. And I hope we get to chat with you again soon.
Appreciate it. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, and we've got those links up for you on the screen that we were just chatting about. Pamela just said, great Q&A session. Thanks, Pamela. I appreciate that. Greg makes it look easy. and he just has such a great way of responding to questions. I don't know about you guys, but I love that when speakers have those really nice voices that you could just listen to for an entire day. So maybe we can get Greg to come back and join us again soon. But yeah, great information in that. There's more information linked on the slides for you here. So go ahead and click on those links if you're looking for a little follow-up. Now, I'm also going to remind you to head on over to the handouts tab if you haven't already done that. Greg's slides are actually there for you in the handouts tab. So if you are looking for a way to kind of remind yourself of everything we just heard about, you can head on over to the handouts tab, download that slide deck, save that for later. You could even, look at the slide deck while watching the on-demand recording that will be out next week. So you could have like your own asynchronous redux of the, of the webinar. So I love that they've provided that. Make sure that you've got that deck downloaded to either look at yourself or share with your team or both. So I'm just giving you a second to get those links clicked, and then I'm going to head over to this poll here. And what we're looking for is what additional information you would like to get about the Palo Alto solution. So obviously we were just doing a bit of a surface level deep dive. There's only so far, that's kind of oxymoronic, isn't it? Surface level deep dive. There's only so far that we can go in 25 minutes. So there's lots more to learn. There's lots more to explore and lots more to dig into with Greg, with the Palo Alto Networks team. So if you're interested in getting a little bit more information, this is a great way to make sure that you don't have to do a thing. You just click on the poll on your screen right now, and the Palo Alto team will send you all the information you need. So take advantage of that. Make your life easy. Your future self will thank you for clicking on that poll right now. While you're doing that, I am going to give away a prize because we have a $300 Amazon gift card sitting here in the wings, so we might as well give that away. Now, a quick reminder that you do need to be here live and present at the webinar in order to win. Our very first lucky winner here with us today of a $300 Amazon gift card is Eric Alfano of Massachusetts. Eric Alfano of Massachusetts. Congratulations to you, Eric. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the webinar. Now, don't forget, there are still 2 more gift cards to give away, so 2 more chances to win. Plus, we have that best question gift card from each session. So keep those questions coming in. Even if we don't get to your question in a live Q&A, all of your questions get sent to the team. So if you ask something for Palo Alto that Greg and I didn't get to just now, we will make sure that Palo Alto Networks gets all those questions. They'll respond to you over email if they don't get back to you in live chat today, and you are entered to win that best question asked card. So keep those questions coming in. All right, well, with that, last chance to click on that poll there if there's any additional information you wanted from Palo Alto. And I'm going to keep things moving along now, folks. Good news, bad news time. Bad news, this is our last session of the day. Good news, it's Rapid 7. So that's a great way to wrap up our day. We have an incredible final presenter for you. It's going to be absolutely packed with cool content and fun takeaways. I am so excited to introduce you all to our last speaker of the day, and that is Megan Donlin, Director of Product Marketing, Detection and Response. Megan, thank you so much for being here with us today to close out this really interesting conversation we've been having. You are our grand finale, and I am so looking forward to hearing your presentation and exploring Rapid 7 a bit more. So without any further ado, take it away, Megan.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for the time. Excited to be here. I'm Megan Donlin. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Rapid7, and excited to spend a little time today talking about how to ensure we're setting your team up for success with your SIEM. So let's get into it. Before we go too deep into the discussion, did want to take a quick beat and just talk a little bit about, what is SIEM, who might need a SIEM. And certainly there's lots of definitions and variations of capabilities and what SIEM looks like from vendor to vendor. But I think this definition from Gartner summarizes, the core functions of SIEM really well, which is to be able to identify security events that are going to require some sort of investigation, and then also to help validate and respond to those security events and issues as effectively as possible. And so this is why I think a lot of people think of SIEM as kind of that key hub in the SecOps diagram, because it's analyzing all of these security events and it's driving the necessary action and activities that are necessary to keep organizations safe. Some of the reasons why, when I talk to practitioners and security and risk leaders of why they're looking at SIEM, sometimes it's growth related. So perhaps, they were previously getting by using some logging or DevOps tooling to satisfy some basic compliance criteria or things like that, but maybe now they're too big and they need a real SIEM. That's certainly a common one. Sometimes it's the current SIEM that they have, they've outgrown, or unfortunately something's happened and the team's not satisfied with their current SIEM anymore, so they're in the market for a new one. Kind of related to the previous point, oftentimes folks that I talk to, have had a critical, security or compliance functionality that they've recognized that they need to be able to drive a successful security program. So maybe, a new leader has come in, or they've talked with the board and they've realized, okay, there's some capabilities and gaps that we have today. And so maybe a SIM can satisfy those. And so that could be kicking off their search. And sometimes, they might be in the market for a SIM with a service. They could be using something today and realize that they need additional support or help with the SIM, and that set them off on a search for both a SIM and a partner to help them manage that. But I think whatever the reason, the goal of today is really about how can we help the people that are looking for a SIM to find success with this project. So this is my not super attractive word cloud, but just a final context setting point that I think is important before we jump too deep into the SIM conversation. And I feel we need to address kind of the elephant in the room, which is, well, what about XDR? Or do I need a SIM, or do I need a SOAR, or a UBA, or a logging tool, or some various point solutions, or just a great partner, or something else? I think this is coming up a lot more frequently, and I would say the lines are definitely blurring between many of these different categories in the market. What's a product? What's a capability? I think sometimes it can feel like there are more questions than clarity around all of these different pieces. And I certainly don't dispute that it's confusing. And I know some folks might feel that vendors are contributing to this confusion, but I would say it's also kind of a powerful time for security buyers right now to take a step back and, not getting too lost in the categories or the acronyms, but rather, take a real inventory of what you need. And when I say what you need from a use case or outcome standpoint, what are you trying to solve, and where do you want to be a year from now, 2 years from now? And really let those outcomes guide your search. I think that's what, we kind of consistently see the most successful security teams do. They're looking at what they need to accomplish, and they're using that to help them define the security stack and what's going to work for their business and their team. And so that might be a SIM, that might be XDR, or it could be the two together. It could be a combination of different products. It could be a consolidation platform that has many of these things. But again, I think it's just important to recognize that there are a lot of related technologies that could make up your eventual security architecture. But again, for today, we're going to focus on one that comes up a lot and is often seen as the backbone of that security architecture, which is SIM. So I'm going to talk about a few factors that go into successful SIM deployment and experience. And obviously there are many, but we're going to look at 4 big ones today that, from talking to practitioners and industry professionals, I think these are consistent themes that rise to the top of the list as of key, considerations, things to evaluate when looking for the right SIM. We'll myth bust a little bit on some common SIM pitfalls and tropes, and hopefully we can help use these tips to drive effective SIM selection and deployment. And so we'll get into each of these a little bit more, but we're going to talk about deployment and data ingestion. We'll talk briefly about compliance and frameworks, not the most exciting one on the list, but certainly a big piece of the conversation when we talk about SIM. We'll talk about threat detection and response, which is actually the opposite. I would say it's incredibly loaded and could be its own webcast, but I'll attempt to cover it in a single point. And then finally, we'll talk about showing value in ROI. So let's jump into it. Before we talk about what good deployment and ingestion looks like, I think we should talk for a second about, traditional SIMs and a lot of the reputation that is associated with SIMs in general today, which is really that they're a headache. And when we look at traditional SIM approach, I think of it as like a big bag of Legos. I think the traditional SIM was like, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of pieces in the bag, but you have to figure out what to do with it. Only it wasn't as much fun as Legos, and a lot of the pieces didn't actually fit together. And so traditional SIMs, they really put all of the work on the customer to figure out. Customer had to decide, where and how they were going to deploy and host the SIM. They had to figure out how they were going to get all the right data that they cared about into the SIM, how to normalize and correlate all of it so it's actually useful to them and something that their team can action, how to tune it, and, writing rules, all of these different pieces that, again, I think people, when you look at, the Reddit thread and the memes, like these are the headaches of traditional SIM. And again, it's basically, here's a box full of data, good luck. For a very small percentage of companies, if you do have an army of people that can go through that box of data, then yeah, I think you might be okay. But otherwise, it was as painful as stepping barefoot on a rogue Lego in the middle of your living room, which I've done, and that hurts. So, I think these are a lot of the things that we think about when we hear the word SIM, and certainly was the case with traditional SIMs at one point. But for today's, modern resource-constrained security team, I think a successful SIM deployment is going to look a lot more like a Lego kit, maybe with some extra very well-organized Legos on the side that you can customize with it when you're ready to. But these are some things to think about when we talk about deployment and data ingestion, some questions that you should ask, your vendor as you're going through and evaluating next steps, or ask your team as you're kind of planning out what your SIM deployment is going to look like. And I think that's the first question. What is it going to look like? And one thing that we notice and we're excited about is increasingly security teams are turning to cloud native, more SaaS delivered SIM as a way to reduce the unnecessary work, the provisioning, configuration, the setup that, again, was associated with traditional SIMs to unlock more scale, more flexibility with a cloud native SIM. If you can't stand up a SIM, then you can't use it. And today, a lot of SIM is shelfware. So really probing with your team or your vendors about what is that typical deployment going to look like, how long it's going to take to baseline, how long it's going to take to be operational with your SIM. That's really key. Next, can you get the data that you need into it? So maybe your team is actively shifting, more of your workloads into AWS. Maybe you've acquired a company with a fleet of Linux servers, or you have some application logs that your team feels are really critical to monitor. Whatever it is, I think you want to make sure that the right ingesters and parsers are in place to be able to collect and effectively use that data in your SIM. A lot of times people, think, oh, I either want to get everything, or, oh, we'll worry about it, and I'm sure it can take what we need. But this is an important point to really dig into, and you should also be thoughtful about, what is the data you actually need to ingest to be successful with your security plan. Which is kind of related to that next point. So normalization and correlation. How is data presented in the SIM? When you're looking at a network log, can you see what users are associated with that activity? When you're looking at across different data sources, how is it all tied together? And if you have unique data that you're interested in monitoring, you're going to be able to parse out the fields that are most relevant to you and your team to be able to use it. Content is also really important content to get you started. This is the kit part, the jumping off point. This could be detections content, but also reporting content, or even some saved searches or response workflows. It doesn't mean that, these are going to be the things that you use 100% of the time, but you don't want to spend cycles getting to that first, 80% out the door. You want the pre-built content that can be a jumping off point for your team, and get you started on that road to success early on. And lastly, again, coming back to usability, can your team use it? Putting the SIM through the paces of a POC is so important. I had a CISO tell me, they were looking at a couple of SIMs and going through the POC. I think maybe they were kind of even in his eyes. And when they kicked it off, they actually saw that they were able to get up and running with one SIM before they could even unpack the boxes of hardware they needed to install for the other one. So just important, again, to really dig in, and look at your team. Do you have a veteran team? Do you have an army of people that can, write rules and configure parsers and all of that? Or do you have a mix of experienced players and more junior players? How are they going to use it? So just doing that diligence, it might seem obvious, but, I think people, as they get into things, maybe overestimate, or they feel pressured to go quickly through different processes. These are important points to think through. Next, I won't spend too much time on this one because I don't think compliance is necessarily the most exciting part of the SIM discussion. Hopefully no risk leaders on the call will get mad at me there, but it's not necessarily where you want to be focusing a lot of your precious security time or resources, but it's definitely an important piece to consider. So we can't talk about SIM without talking about compliance and frameworks. And, SIMs, obviously they're providing the real-time monitoring, the data retention, the analysis of the security events that you need for a lot of these requirements. And in the event of an audit, the last thing you really want to be doing is struggling to show a QA the logs or the reports that they want to see. You want to be able to pull these up quickly. You want to show that you're checking all the right boxes. And a good SIM can aggregate all of this for you and hopefully, give you the jumpstart that you need to be able to get through these processes quickly. And I'm saying compliance, but it might be also security controls that your organization has decided to map to as well. NIST, ISO, CIS, any of those. Like, do you have the right pieces in place to be able to demonstrate progress there, that you have coverage? And a strong SIM may also have some additional capabilities that can support some of these compliance requirements as well. So things like file integrity monitoring or intrusion detection system events, both of which are requirements of PCI DSS. So again, compliance and frameworks, not necessarily the most exciting topic, but I think an important piece is you're getting everyone kind of rallied around a new SIM. These are some things that you want to consider. And again, it's all about kind of thoughtfulness through this process and having a plan, thinking about for every piece of data, every input, how you're going to use that and what it looks like on the other side. The next piece, so threat detection and response, I think is a very loaded and an exciting topic, one that I love talking about, but we could probably spend another whole webcast going through. I'll attempt to cover a few key considerations on this one slide. And I think this is another area where when we think about traditional SIM, I think, let a lot of people down and too much of the work was really put on the analyst to figure out, both from a rule writing perspective, but also knowing what to do when something bad happens. And so now more SIMs have started to recognize that having good detections content and capabilities that enable analysts to identify those real threats early on in the process, minimize them effectively, like that's the most critical and ultimate goal of the security team at the end of the day, finding evil and removing it as quickly as possible. Few items to consider here. And again, these are all pretty loaded, but I think first, looking for that high fidelity detections content. How can we make sure that we're not adding more noise and complexity to the SOC? That's the opposite of what we want to do. We definitely want to kick the tires on these detections. We want to make sure that any detections that the SIM is providing out of the box can save your team time. That's the goal. Unfortunately, sometimes they can create a lot of noise and pain. So you want to be able to have confidence that when an alert fires, this is a real event that requires attention from your SOC. So you want to look at what details are provided. How are these detections mapped? Do you have a frame of reference? Are they mapped to MITRE? Can you look at, what that coverage looks like? Do you, can you look at some reviews and look into noise and fidelity of detections? What does this library look like? How are different events tied together? Digging into the fidelity is going to be an important upfront step that hopefully can save your team a lot of time down the road. Also, the coverage of this library. So, a good SIM, I think, is going to use a variety of intelligence sources and techniques to detect attacks. You'll have anomaly detection, signature-based detection, behavior-based detection, potentially machine learning, AI, like all of these things could be folded in. And it's easy to maybe get lost in all of the different types of methodologies that are using, but you want to make sure that you have that coverage against known threats, of course, but also unknown threats, and across a variety of sources. Again, look at your environment. Do you have the right endpoint detections? Do you have user detections? Can you bring network detections in, endpoint detections, all of these different pieces? You want to make sure you're covered. Cloud detections, are you able to integrate effectively with AWS and Azure? So these are things to dig into as you're looking at a new SIEM. Having effective detection and automation engineering in place for you definitely removes some of the operationalization burden off of your team. And then, what that means is they can hopefully focus in on just tuning that last 15 to 20%. If the out of the box detections can give you like an 80% head start, then you're in a really good place. And so there's always going to be some smaller long tail that's going to be unique to your organization and your environment. So if you have a good detections library as a foundation, there's more time for your team to potentially, spend on that. And then also, spend some time looking at, rooting out more latent threats, doing those threat hunts, the things that, prevention and your other detection methodologies might have missed that could be lurking in your environment. These are kind of those headline making threats. But if you can carve out time for hunting, that's critical for finding those threats and not letting them progress too far down the kill chain. So a great SIEM is going to enable a lot of hunting. It's going to give you the forensics and the logs and the details that you need to be able to move quickly. And again, hopefully intuitively searching through your environment to find those sort of things. And when alerts do fire, you want to make sure you have cohesive investigations. Do you have the right evidence? Do you have the right detail to be able to dig into these sorts of events? That's certainly critical. Recommendations is a big piece that, we're starting to see come up a little bit more, especially, we think about optimizing for the modern SOC. When something happens, is your team going to know what to do? That's, talking about the difference of seconds. And so knowing what to do is key. And then can the SIEM help you orchestrate some of that response? So having some automation in place to be able to take action. Something bad has happened. Now I have a recommended workflow that I can action immediately. I have confidence that this is a real threat that I need to respond to. Yes, I want to contain it. Let's go right there. So again, this section I know is very loaded. Again, something we'll probably come back and spend another whole webcast on, but I think hopefully some valuable points in here to think through as you're looking at SIEM. And then the last piece is, demonstrating ROI and value. And again, I think SIEMs kind of have a history of not doing this. Historically, there's a lot of shelfware. People have invested a lot of money in SIEMs. They can, a lot of SIEMs, many of them are based on data ingestion, and those costs can sprawl really, really quickly. And so you're in a situation where you're spending a lot of money and don't have enough to show for it. So again, a lot of SIEM success is planning upfront, and some of that is managing expectations, defining what good looks like with your stakeholders and the people who are, helping determine budgets. What are some milestones that they have, like getting out in front of those in terms of what they expect to see from a SIEM deployment. And you might have to do some education along the way, but again, these steps are worth it upfront to give your team more runway down the line and to be able to showcase and really make your team shine. Setting benchmarks around some of the key performance indicators and, reporting security progress. How are you maturing? What are some, stats that you want to bring back to your board or your C-suite on a regular basis? It could be things like mean time to detect, mean time to respond. Could also be, especially if you're in the case of like moving from one SIEM to another, a reduction in false positives. It could be time saved, budget saved. I'm sure would certainly be an exciting one for that C-suite audience. And then case studies. I think people remember stories, and some of your board might be a little overwhelmed. They know security is important. They know the blockbuster, terms and ransomware and those sorts of things, but they might not be as well versed as the rest of your team is on some of the day-to-day functions. And I think, security, unfortunately, great security is quiet security. And so finding some stories and ways to share success is really key, and really a core responsibility for leaders. And a great SIM can hopefully help you do that, and can help show, again, progress on some of those key metrics to help you build that story. So to recap, again, there's a long list beyond this, and many of these are loaded, but these are a few big things that come up when we talk to practitioners, we talk to industry professionals, thinking about deployment. What do you need? How much time can your team afford to carve out for deployment? How are you going to be able to ingest the data that you need, that you want to monitor and be able to detect and defend against? Compliance and frameworks, always a critical part of the conversation when we talk about SIM. Are you going to have affordable data retention that you can support, and will you be ready when that audit comes with the necessary reports and documentation that you need? And these can be another tool for also showing progress as well, in the case of the frameworks that your team is using. Threat detection and response. Do you have the high fidelity alerts? The time to go in and really dig into the data and find those latent threats and be able to respond and orchestrate response effectively and leverage automation. And then, can you bring the metrics back to the team and show progress? Because too many SIMs don't. And at the end of the day, it's all about ROI. So a bit of a whirlwind tour, but hopefully some helpful tips in here about how to find SIM success with you and your team. And if this is a topic that you're digging into, we at Rapid7 would, of course, love to help. Please visit us at rapid7.com/insightidr to learn more. And thank you so much for the time. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Well, thank you for the time, Megan, and for that awesome presentation. A lot of really great takeaways for everyone out there. And I know that we all really enjoyed that. I love that the ultimately relatable, most painful metaphor that we can all think of is stepping barefoot on a Lego. It resonates with everyone. Anyone who's ever experienced that knows. All right, well, you can see that I've got a poll up for you on the screen. What we're wondering is what additional information you would like to get about the Rapid7 solutions. Everything we were talking about earlier applies again. Basically, you get a lot of information. It comes at you really fast. You will not remember it all, so you're going to want a reminder, a refresher. So this is an easy way to get that information to you, exactly what you want, exactly what you need, so that you don't have to do a bunch of digging around to go find it. So let Rapid7 send you the information that you need just by clicking on this poll here. I'm going to leave that up for just a moment longer, and we are going to give away some prizes. But before I do that, I also want to remind you to go to the Handouts tab. Now, there's a very special resource there from Rapid7, and this is really cool. A lot of times the resources are things to sort of read or explore. This is an actual sort of implementation tool. This is something that you could bring into your organization and start using. It's actually a checklist. So it's a Rapid7 SIM deployment checklist. It's going to walk you through the planning steps with tried and tested sort of tick marks that you should be going through, as well as some important questions that you should be asking yourself along the way during that implementation process. So a really practical tool. Make sure you've downloaded that, hang on to that, because whether you need it now or you are in that 12 months from now category at the start of our EcoCast here today, that's going to be very helpful for you once you start that process. So make sure you've got that handout. Okay, now prizes. I said that. Let's get to it. Now, I'm going to remind you one more time that you do need to be here live and present with us at the EcoCast in order to win. So we're going to give away 2 more of these $300 Amazon gift cards, and then I will recap the whole winners list. So our next 2 winners are Michelle Guo of California, and Parisa Asfahani of Texas. Okay, that whole list again: Eric Alfano of Massachusetts, Michelle Guo of California, and Parisa Asfahani of Texas. Congratulations to all of our lucky winners today. Now, as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap, so stay tuned for that. All right, folks, well, we're nearing that end time. But the fun doesn't have to be over. If you're thinking to yourself, this has been great and I would like to present, I'd like to come hang out and be behind the scenes with the ATM crew, we would love that. So if you're thinking about a summit, a megacast, an EcoCast, a webinar, a panel cast, a demo cast, you name it, we've got it. You want to come and present, we would absolutely love to make that happen. So send an email to connect@actualtechmedia.com and get that conversation rolling. And hopefully David, Keith, myself, Scott will all get to chat with you on one of these live events coming up soon. And with that, folks, here we are at the very end of our EcoCast already. Short and sweet, but packing a punch today. So on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I would like to thank all of our speakers from Palo Alto Networks and from Rapid7 for making this EcoCast possible. And on that note, a big and very heartfelt thank you to all of you for attending and for asking some great questions today. I really had a lot of fun talking with you all about SSE, SIEM, and SOAR, and thinking about some of these more innovative ways that we can look at building up our defenses and keeping our organizations safe, because that's really what this is all about, right? And these conversations really are an excellent example of the opportunities that come out of these collaborative conversations when we share ideas, when we share experiences, when we share tools, best practices, and sometimes the mistakes as well, and learning from those. So I hope you've gotten a lot out of our conversation today. I know I have. I would also like to invite you all to come back and join me again. So on Friday, April 21st, we'll wrap up the weekend style, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We have a panel cast on how to select your next data protection platform. That's with Rubrik and Portworx from Pure Storage. So here's the thing. What I love about this conversation here, we get questions all the time from you folks about how do I choose the best vendor for me? How do I evaluate the right solution? And what should I be asking? And how do I know when I found the right tool? So this is going to be a conversation entirely based around that. How do you select the best tool, that next data protection platform that is going to be exactly the right fit for you, for your organization, and give you that peace of mind that you have protected that oh so important data in your organization. So book your calendar for that right now. And while you're at it, just go ahead and book your calendar for all the upcoming Actual Tech Media webinars, because they're all amazing and you should just come to all of them, right? That's the key takeaway from this conversation today. All right, well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you all. I hope I'll get to see you on Friday or tomorrow. We have another cool megacast tomorrow morning. So whenever it is, we'll have another fun chat soon. And until that day, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.